of the Democrats and the liberals, specifically after Trump got elected. The adults are letting us down, so we kids are gonna band together and do the right thing. So that's why you see this fake, like, oh yeah, we're feminist comrades, and like, we have women, we have men. Yeah, because you're children. You don't have this sexual equality of adults. That's something much harder to accomplish. You have the equality of boys and girls, which children and girls, they're not distinguishable. You're a boy, you're a girl. It's the same shit. You're a child, right? You're not an adult. Only when you're an adult does sexuality become relevant. Before you're an adult, you're either a child or you're an adolescent, but you're a child, right? You know, for the most part, you're a child, right? You're not an adult. That much can be certain, right? So it's almost like what we have is a version of Minions communism. Minions communism, where there's no, from a psychoanalytic perspective, the Oedipal complex is being forestalled. It's delayed development. It's Minions communism. That's what you see on Twitter. And by the way, that's how we would have a Discord of like 50% men, 50% women. Okay, it'd be like Minions communism. Alright guys, we're all cute here and we're just like in this androgynous kind of thing where it's like you're children basically, right? Now what makes this a problem specifically? Give me a sec. What makes this a problem? Why am I saying this is an issue, right? I'd have to explain some stuff about psychoanalysis first, so I'll explain it to you. In psychoanalysis, there's the term that Lacan comes up with, and the term is called the name of the father. And if you know anything about Shakespeare, you know about Hamlet. In Hamlet, the ghost of Hamlet's father comes and haunts him. And that's like a profound source of compulsion, right? When an enemy invades your country, it's the voice of the father that impels you to take up arms and defend your homeland, right? When Soviet soldiers were fighting the Germans, they would shout the name of the father. Who was the father? Stalin. The father Stalin, right? Because it's through the father that you defend the motherland, right? Father represents defense of everything sacred, everything prohibited, right? That's why the root word of both patriarchy and patriotism are the same. The patria, right? The patria, right? So, what do I really mean by patriarchal communism, right? That's what we're going to have a deep dive and explore a little bit, because I want to talk about this. First of all, so Haz, are you against women fighting the patriarchy? No, I don't care if they want to fight the patriarchy or not, because what does that have to do with me? Nothing, right? All I will insist upon is the fact that there is not one patriarchy. So when you're fighting the so-called patriarchy, you're fighting the patriarchy of the existing status quo in the existing American state. Well, no, we need our own patriarchy. And maybe you can fight our patriarchy, but we're not going to submit. We communist men are going to have this thing where we accept the manhood of those in power? No, we're our own fucking men. Okay? We have our own patriarchy. And if you want to talk about equality or whatever, you deal with it within ours, right? And that's actually how you get real respect between men and women, is you have to first acknowledge you don't just deny all sexual realities and be like, we're minions and we're all the same and we're all so cute. You're children then. You're not actually subverting anything. You're still taking the father for granted. Your father's not my father. My father is Stalin. My father is Stalin. My father is Marx and Engels. Your father is Joe Biden. So when you rebel against your father, that's still your fucking daddy. That's still your fucking father. You understand? Do you guys understand where I'm getting at with this? Communism in America is specifically a group of children who have ran away from their parents and have decided to form a community together that simulates a society, that simulates politics, that simulates what the adults are doing, but never actually challenges or disturbs or replaces the patriarchal power of the society. Yes, like the Lost Boys of Peter Pan or Neverland. Communist LARPers and organizations in America merely try to replicate. They don't actually touch to the patriarchal source of what glues the society together. They are children making a make-believe society that's one big type of cute rebellion against the parents. Children do this all the time. They have a lemonade stand. They create alternative societies where there's a mayor and there's a police. Now you just up the scale a little bit, and then it's the same thing, but with just more resources and shit behind it, right? No, don't misunderstand me, because do communists believe in equal rights for women and respect and all that kind of stuff? Of course. But why must there be a communist patriarchy? I'm going to explain it to you. So these runaway children have ran away from their parents because they have been let down by their father, so to speak. Their proverbial father has let them down and has disappointed them. So, could a communist patriarch be a woman? Yes. I'll get to that. Potentially, yes. There's no reason for this not to be possible. Nothing here is directly literal. We're not actually talking about the rule of men for men's sake. We're talking about something much deeper. Like Rosa Luxemburg, she is a kind of patriarch. Felix Dzerzhinsky, the head of the Soviet Cheka, he had a photo of Rosa Luxemburg, who was a sacred name of the father for him and many other communists, hanging up in his office. Because when he thinks of Rosa, he thinks of the patriarch, the name of the father. Just don't beautify it and do it for its own sake. But yeah, of course it's possible. Why not? But when you do it for its own sake, and you start to take enjoyment of the fact that they're women, you're like, oh, and you think it's like subversive, then you're making it into a perversion, right? Smoke, that's not true. That's not true. Women don't even care about politics. That's not true. That's not true. Thank you, dictator. Women care about politics, but they have to maneuver the patriarchal stuff, right? So-called patriarchal stuff, to have a platform. Because it's true, we don't have an equal relation. Women are intimidated. They're don't have confidence and stuff, and so on and so on. So many need male validation in order to give voice to their opinion and their expression, and so on and so on. And of course, communists have a special way of fostering a different culture. But before you do that, you need a communist patriarchy. So what do I mean by communist patriarchy? Communism for this children, the students of Chairman Gonzalo, and these kind of people you're seeing on Twitter who are Zoomers. They're Zoomers who are androgynous, completely have no regard for any kind of gender, sexual realities, completely foreclose the name of the Father, and instead engage in what the French thinker Deleuze would call the jouissance, the enjoyment of partial drives. So, for example, within psychoanalysis, there's the kind of Oedipal drive that you get your jouissance from, which is based on a specific relationship between the subject and the father and the mother and so on, and this kind of triad, right? Whereas the jouissance of partial drives, which is celebrated by people like Deleuze and so on, is you derive this fundamental death drive enjoyment, the surplus enjoyment, psychic surplus enjoyment, if you will, from a kind of completely de-patriarchalized, de-Oedipalized reality, where there is no one father. There's a multiplicity of different objects, partial objects of enjoyment. You never latch on to one melodrama that defines you. So within a patriarchy, you have Hamlet, you have Shakespeare, you have the Greek tragedy, one confrontation, one story, one drama, right, that defines who you are. But with the what Deleuze will call the jouissance of partial drives, you never become too attached to one object to go through this drama. You have a multiplicity of partial enjoyments and so on, never actually accomplishing this more fundamental confrontation of the subject. How does this become possible? In psychoanalysis, there's a term. I can't really explain to you all of psychoanalysis, so please bear with me. And if you kind of get what I'm saying here, that would be enough. All you have to do is kind of get it. You just have to kind of get it, right? You have to kind of get it, okay? There's something called the foreclosure of the signifier. So in psychoanalysis, very briefly, we have signifiers. Signifiers are not the same as signifieds. Signifieds are like the external objects, or the things that come to your mind when something is signified. A pure signifier, right, is the relation between, so it sounds like a word, like with language. So think of a word, right? Let's say I say the word communist. So the word communist has a signifier. Now when I say communist, you think of the signified, the concept or the image that corresponds to it. But behind this word communist lies a signifier. And this signifier represents the structure of our unconscious that leads to these signifieds. So when I say communist, there's something in my unconscious that makes it coherent and makes it sensible, right? So those is what signifier means. So a signifier is a relation between itself and all other signifiers. They're metonymic. So the signifier for communist is only ever going to be able to define itself through other signifiers. So there's a chain of signifiers, this chain of equivalences, right? If you have a signifier for an apple, right? What does it mean that it's metonymic? Well, what is an apple? In order to define an apple, you have to compare it to other things, right? So an apple is something that's going to be defined based on its relationship to other things. Apples are fruits. It's the whole thing of genus and classification. They're fruits. They're like bananas. So there's a chain of signifiers, and all of them just refer to themselves, to each other, right? You never get to a point where a signifier can merely refer to itself. It's always based on where it is in the entire chain of signifiers. And this entire chain of signifiers is something in psychoanalysis that's called the symbolic order. Okay? Now, in the symbolic order, there's a master signifier. And what is this the signifier of? What does the master signifier signify? What is the signified that corresponds to it? Is it a specific image? Is it a specific signified? Is it a specific concept? No. The master signifier is the signifier of signification as such. The signifier of signification as such. The very signifier of the symbolic order itself, the whole order, which means the symbolic order is not something you take for granted. It's partial and determinate. It's human, right? It's not dwelling out there in cosmos. It's human. It's our humanity, right? So the master signifier is the signifier of signification. Okay? Signification itself. It is the one signifier in the entire chain of signifiers that refers only to signification as such. The very possibility of signification as such. It is their relationship to the master signifier, otherwise known as the phallus or Freud, or the name of the Father, that allows us to possess an adult relationship to the symbolic order. An adult shoulders the world of meaning independently. As an adult, this is a bottle of water. As an adult, this is a bottle of water, not because someone told me so, not because an authority said so of some kind, but because I have somehow made it intelligible as such myself. So if I have kids, I can explain to them how shit works, but I have this independent grounding of my reality, right? Yes, the master signifier, very good, yes. Expresses the meaning and order of all the other signifiers. But meaning is very important. This sounds like the Platonic good. It is the Platonic good. It is the Platonic good. The only difference is that the Platonic good confines itself to thought. But the master signifier is not just about thought or concepts. It's about the structure of our unconscious. And Plato has no room for an unconscious. He's a philosopher. So for Plato, it all begins with the idea. Right? The idea. And the self-identity of the idea. Right? So yes, it is the Platonic good. That's why for Plato is the most patriarchal philosopher in the history of mankind. Are you kidding? For Plato, comprehension of the good is something only the master can accomplish. Not just the patriarch, but the master, the Greek master who is not a slave, but the master of slaves, right? That's the master who wields the signifier. I mean, Lacan calls it the master signifier because it is the master of Plato. It's Plato's master who has an independent comprehension of the good. And that's the same thing as the patriarch, right? The father, the name of the father. The master requires the psychological framework of the unconscious mind to be conceived. No, you're overthinking it. Yeah, Peterson. Peterson is a Jungian. I'm a Lacanian. What's wrong with Jung? He's full of shit. So what does this have to do with the shit I was talking about with communism and the community of runaway children? That is what communists are in America today. Well, if it wasn't for the shit in my throat, I'd be able to tell you faster. So give me a second. In a event. So first of all, what separates a child? Thank you, Noble Woman. I completely missed your subs. Thank you for the 5. Missed that. Appreciate it. So what is it exactly that separates a child from an adult? Thank you, Johnny. In Lacan's framework. For Lacan, for Freud, it's a specific stage of the Oedipal complex, right? Where entrance into the symbolic order as such has not yet happened. So what does it mean to enter this symbolic order? Roy, shut the fuck up about Mongols and showering. Get the fuck out of my chat forever. Read the fucking room, you fucking idiot. Making me lose my train of thought. I hate dumbasses that just come in here and say shit. And that was a perma-ban, by the way. So don't fucking come in here and make me lose my fucking train of thought. Talking about dumb shit. Okay. Thank you, 1000. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. So, before your entrance into the symbolic order, you have something called the imaginary order, which is the order of images. So for Lacan, when a child enters the world, the first form of meaning that's going to be, that they're going to have to make sense of things and the world is going to lie in the image, the presence of the mother. The presence of the mother for whom you are the object of the other's desire, namely the desire of the mother. The mother loves you, she's taking care of you, rock my baby, on whatever the fuck, right? That's the imaginary order. Why? Because the imaginary order is strictly defined by the complete unity of the imaginary other, right? With you as a subject and as their object, right? So, but in the imaginary order, the mother's absence is what happens. You start crying and screaming and whatever. Why? Because in the mother's absence, you have what? Complete absence of any meaning. So it is the consistency of the mother's presence that attaches you to some kind of world of meaning, right? Now, entrance into the symbolic order happens, and this is Freud's Oedipal framework, which is not to be taken literally, when it becomes clear that the mother's desire is divided. The mother does not only desire you as the subject. She also seems to desire something beyond you. For Freud, that is her husband, which is the father. So, the child begins to view the father as being the reason why they do not have the full enjoyment They don't have full jouissance. They don't have the full undivided desire of the mother. So that the father's stealing it from them somehow, right? So that's the beginning of the Oedipal conflict for Freud. The conflict of the Oedipal complex, right? The father is something the mother desires, not just you. So the object of the mother's desire is not just you, it's somewhere else. It's something else. Namely the father. Something else. Okay. So, entrance into the symbolic order happens when you have something called symbolic castration. And this castration, for Freud, is when the father, it's an experience of like this kind of metaphor of castration, where the father takes away from you your full jouissance, your full enjoyment, and forces you to possess some kind of lack in its stead. Before, the only lack you ever had was when your mother wasn't in the room. You had just pure lack, right? The father engages in this. The father initiates the symbolic castration through taking away your phallus, right? The phallus is what? The signifier of signification. You don't have full access to it. Full, undivided access to the phallus. Sorry, to the... you do not possess full, undivided access to the other. So you do not possess... you do not alone possess the phallus. Does the master signifier play a role in the bed? No, that's through Lacan, who introduces signifiers because of his introduction of semiotics to psychoanalysis. So before this, it's all Freud's direct, like literal interpretations. When Freud talks about father, he's talking about actual fathers. When Lacan talks about father, he's talking about the structure of language. So Lacan's a kind of structuralist or a post-structuralist, right? He's not talking literally about this stuff. Freud also doesn't only talk literally. Like when he says castration, he doesn't mean literal castration, but he's referring to myths to describe real phenomena. So, one enters the symbolic order when, having been deprived of their full jouissance, they begin to pursue their desire and acquire their jouissance in a partial way. The father prohibits you from fully having the mother, right? Fully having access to the mother. And this prohibition, this fundamental prohibition, defines your subjectivity in such a sense that you seek jouissance in another, right? This is another woman, basically, right? With that prohibition in mind, right? So this is the beginning of adulthood, more or less. That's the beginning of adulthood. That's the beginning of adulthood. Why? Because as a child, you have the imaginary order. In adulthood, you go through the symbolic castration, and eventually the symbolic castration becomes resolved when you recognize prohibition. This prohibition is somehow a key to your own necessity. So you become the father eventually, right? Because why is it the key to your necessity? Because your jouissance, your enjoyment, becomes structured in such a way that this prohibition becomes necessary. So this is what it means, the name of the Father. The name of the Father reminds you. To and why, shut the fuck up. Matter of fact, motherfucker, come back in an hour or something. This shit is important. No, unban him. Unban him. Just time him out for like an hour or something. Okay? Here, I'll time you out for 30 minutes. There you go. I can't lose my train of thought. Okay? Anyway, as I was saying, fuck. There's too much to explain when it comes to psychoanalysis. It's literally so much to explain. Like, I didn't talk to you about how this fits within the world of meaning and language and signifiers and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to say this to try and simplify it, okay? We don't have to go through psychoanalytic theory. We're just going to simplify it, okay? This so-called community of children accomplishes something called foreclosure of the signifier. And in the foreclosure of the signifier, what it means is basically what it sounds like. You foreclose the voice of the Father, the name of the Father, and the master signifier, this presence, this castrative presence, you foreclose it. You shut it off, right? And the specific mechanism by which foreclosure happens is by identifying in the name of the Father and in the phallus and in the master signifier some kind of imaginary form. So when you reduce the master signifier, let's say, for example, foreclosure is psychosis. It's the quintessential structure of the psyche. A psychotic or a schizophrenic is understood through the mechanism, through the process of foreclosure for Lacan. Because the master signifier is reduced to being some kind of imaginary form. Okay? The name of the Father is not recognized as like something that is capable of castrating or jouissance, but something that's similar to the mother, right? It's just an imaginary presence that fails. So the name of the Father for communists in America is what? This is so important, guys. Can you please sit the fuck down and listen? They have foreclosed the name of the Father, the communists in United States and Canada, as what? The conspiracy of capitalism and patriarchy and imperialism and racism and misogyny and transphobia and homophobia and bigotry. They have reduced this name of the Father to a bunch of like conspiracies, basically, right? So there's no name of the Father. Name of Father is always already defined with a set of intentions and subjectivity that is immediately transparent to the object. They think they know the Father, the name of the Father, because the Father is what? Imperialist, racist, sexist, transphobic, imperialist, indigenous phobic. What do they say? Whatever, right? The reason patriotic communism has struck such a nerve is because we represent embrace of the name of the Father and the master signifier in psychoanalytic terms. This is too high level for you guys. I swear to God, it's too high level. This is way too deep for you guys to fucking understand. And it's actually sad. This is like so high level shit. Okay. I feel bad for a lot of people, right? Who don't get it. But anyway. to just explain this to you in very practical, concrete terms. What then is communism for these people? Is communism a new signifier? No. Communism for them specifically is the structure of this. It's the imaginary form of this foreclosure. Communism is some kind of like Peter Pan that came from the netherworld. It's quite terrifying, actually. Communism is like this Peter Pan that came to them and said, oh, your father's mistreating you, your family's mistreating you, your country's mistreating you, then join with me and I will take you. Some kind of musical begins, basically. And you get to go to Netherland. And that's what communism represents for them. So this is all Peter Pan coming to rescue the scorned child and take them to Netherland. That's what this photo represents. Effectively. That's it's Harry Potter. What happened in Harry Potter? This boy, Harry Potter, he lived in the stairs. And he has a big fat father, big fat guy. He said, and he used to slap him around and shit and throw him, just beat him up and stuff. And he got out the belt and shit. He made him live in the stairs. And Harry Potter, oh, this poor boy, he's always persecuted. Dad is mean to me. Mom is mean to me. So what happened? Dumbledore descended from the sky. And I will take you to Hogwarts. Na 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 magical. This is the specific form of foreclosure. This is a specific form of psychosis. Foreclosure of the name of the Father. Foreclosure of the name of the Father. That's Harry Potter, right? You're a wizard, Harry. You're special in some kind of way. Replace this. Dumbledore, you're special. You join us to Netherland and you could. This is horrible, horrifying psychosis. Horrifying psychosis. Communism represents an alien force, benevolent alien force. Benevolent alien force. Why must it be alien? Because if it's proximate, it's going to reintroduce you to the your Oedipal confrontation, right? So it has to be an alien abduction. It's almost like aliens abduct you, but they're benevolent, and that's what these people represent communism as: a benevolent alien abduction. Of course, every parent knows there is no such thing as a benevolent abduction. If you get abducted by aliens, you're gonna get probed. Now, my favorite, good movie, progressive movie is Pinocchio. Pinocchio is a good movie because Pinocchio teaches you this. You learn this in Pinocchio. You want an alien abduction to free you? Well, then you're gonna go to that island. You get turned into a donkey, and that island, by the way, is a metaphor for pedophilia. You're gonna get abused. And your parents warn you about that shit. Don't trust strangers. Don't trust alien abductions because they're going to use you for something. Nothing in this life is free. Nothing in this life is free. You understand? So we stand by the movie Pinocchio against Peter Pan and against Harry Potter. Because no one can replace your Oedipal confrontation. You must, like DSA is another fucking Hogwarts DSA but notice in this parable of the foreclosure of the signifier, it's never just children. There's always some old pedo too. Dumbledore is here. Some force of legitimation. That's super. It's like a grandfather force, an old guy. And unfortunately, they have blasphemed Marx as this. They have blasphemed Mao as this. Marx and Mao specifically. They see Mao as this Dumbledore guy. They see Mao the same way. Bernie's the perfect example. Hey guys, it's me, Bernie Sanders. Get on my candy truck. Get in my van. I got some free candy for you. It's me, Bernie Sanders. I got free candy. Would you trust that? That's weird. I don't trust that. I don't trust that shit. You shouldn't trust it either. His name is Bernie, okay? What else do you need to... It's weird. I'm sorry, but his name is Bernie. Now, I was behind Bernie's movement in 2016, but I didn't like that Bernie Sanders had to be the leader of it. I didn't like that his name was Bernie. It's weird. Why is his name Bernie? He could have had any other name, but he has the name of like some kind of... It reminds me of like Barney the dinosaur. Barney the dinosaur is actually the symbol of American communism right now. I love you, you love me. Leave your father and come with me and get in my van, 'cause I'm taking you to church. Liberation will come on earth. I can promise treats and candy. Barney loves you and your father doesn't, and I will take you. You will join with me, all the children happily. That's what it is. That's what it is. Tell me I'm wrong. That's what it is. That's what this shit is. That's what all these people calling themselves Maoists, they're all young Zoomers getting groomed in Discords. They're all young people in Discords getting groomed. Hee, we're all children. You know what it reminds me of? It's all children running around in their diaper. And they're trolling and shit. But at the end of the day, we're all children. This is no place for children. And that's why they have the so-called equality between genders and all between sexualities and all this shit, you know? Because they're children. When you're a child, none of that even matters. You haven't actually accomplished some kind of real equality between men and women. That's something only adult men, adult women can accomplish. Leftists have not accomplished this in the United States. They have adolescentized, infantilized, and deprived themselves, I should say, of their adult sexuation. They deprive you of your manhood. They deprive you of your womanhood, and you become a child who's on Bernie Sanders' candy train. And that's pedo shit. I'm sorry, but that's some pedo shit. That is complete pedo shit. No. Instead of this Barney the dinosaur communism, we must have patriarchal communism. What is patriarchal communism? Patriarchal communism is communism rooted in the name of the father. Rooted in the tradition, rooted in the sacred tradition even. Why do you think I have chosen the Communist Party USA of all parties? Because that is the patriarchal tradition. That's historical tradition. We must have our own prohibition. We must have our own new signifier, master signifier.
Napoleon_Bonaparte donated $5. Big agree on Bernie. I'm sick of people naming their children nicknames of what actual names are. Name your child Archibald, not Archie. Name your kid Amiro, not Ray. Name your kid Napoleon, not Leon.
I agree, because the name Bernie, I'm sorry, but if you name your child Bernie, that's honestly, yeah. That is brutal. Hold on. Some guy in my chat, he goes, Can we write that down somewhere? We need to fucking Please, let's laminate that. Let's make it official. I don't know how to fucking do this. Bernie was Biden's child catcher. Holy shit! Holy shit! It was Biden. Bernie was Biden's child snatcher. I have to fucking make a thing of that because. Bernie Sanders was Biden's child snatcher. We gotta. I'm making that official. That is so fucking true. This is what Bernie was. If you played this game, you would understand. This is exactly what Bernie was. This is exactly what Bernie was. 1000%. This is what he was. That was Bernie. Look, I gotta. I don't. My good friend Joe Biden. Oh, 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 come here, young one. I got some candy for you. That's another one for Biden. Come on, you want some free health care, free education? Come on. Come on. Free health care, free education for everybody. Free health care and education for everybody. Let's go. Let's go. We're doing it. We're doing it. Oh, okay. Want some free pot? Got some free pot for you. Oh, gummies. Come here. Oh, just a little closer. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Another one for Biden. Got another one for Biden. Okay, we're gonna get some more. Y'all, you want some free pot? Got some free pot for you. Come on, yeah? Come on. Vote Democrat. Get over here. Yeah, free pot. Free pot. Some free pot. Just a little closer. Just a little